By the way, in the news as well, which is a personal sadness to me, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi died.
Yeah.
Yes, he died last night.
That's the guy who...
I never expected that to happen.
I never did.
That's the guy whose meditation you follow?
He's 91 years old. And he is a terrific man. I got to interview him twice when I was at NBC Radio. I went to Washington and spoke with him. And I believe he was really onto something. His philosophy of life was deep and profound. The idea of bringing meditation to the masses, especially in Western culture, and teaching people how to meditate so that they could fit it into busy lives, was absolutely essential and important, and that his whole idea of world peace, and he was a philosopher and a deeply religious guy as well. And I believe we've lost someone very important. I was also saddened to see that in the newspaper. They barely gave it any coverage. It's a small...
I didn't even see it yet.
And he's only remembered as the Beatles meditation teacher. And I thought there was a lot more to the guy, and maybe his obituary in the New York Times will be a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more detailed, other than just the Beatles, which was a small blip on his radar. But yet it brought him to prominence. And I got turned, I will forever, forever, forever be indebted to the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi for saving my mother, who really was a very, very depressed woman, and really, I feel, on the edge of the envelope. And when I was in college, I used to worry about her all the time. My mother was very, very depressed. She had lost her sister, and it threw her into the worst depression that, I could imagine. And, I was really, really concerned about her for many years. And all of a sudden, my mother sees the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on, I think, the Johnny Carson show. Either that or Merv Griffin. I think in this case, it was Johnny Carson.
So we're early 70s we're talking?
We're talking about 1970... I'll tell you exactly the year. 1973.
Okay.
And I'm not good at remembering years, but when your mother's life is saved...
Right, and you were in college, so that makes sense, 73, right?
I was a freshman. And, my mother called me up. She said, and she sounded different immediately. And she said, I need you to do something. I want you to come to a transcendental meditation center with me. I said, oh, I know all about that stuff, mantras and all of this. And she said, my life's been changed by this TM. I said, oh, I know all about it. Meanwhile, I knew nothing about it.
You always know everything.
But, yeah, you know me. I know everything. And I told her, a mantra, and she figured I knew what I was talking about. I had no idea what I was talking about. But I was 18, had no interest in meditating or anything like that. Well, I went home, and my mother, I saw a difference in her. She was no longer this depressed, down woman. And my father, too, was sort of happier. And they described to me, they went to a TM center after seeing the Maharishi on Johnny Carson, and they got completely sort of misled. They thought he was going to teach them. They thought that he would be there. He wasn't there, but they have a teacher at a TM center and stuff. So she was all confused, and my father was like, what are we doing? What do we do? My father's so not into this stuff, but because my mother was going to do it, they taught her quickly, which they teach everyone. You pay a fee and you learn this, and then you have this technique for life. In other words, a one-shot deal. You pay a couple of bucks, and then you have this technique. And so my mother did it, and I am telling you, the change was profound. I mean, a woman who was no longer depressed. Like super happy, content, had a philosophy of life, understood death, understood that life goes on for the living kind of thing, and was just... I can't even tell you how happy the woman was. I mean, I was like, what did they dope her up or something?
Then they antidepressant without taking a pill.
What is she doing over there?
Yes. And aside from that, a lot of her ailments with insomnia and stuff were cured. And, so my mother drags me into a TM center. They teach me. And I was shocked by how easy it was and how quick it was. And lo and behold, I felt that nothing had changed inside of me. I said, well, I'm the same, but good for my mother. And I kept doing it. And I would say within a month, I quit a 3.5-pack cigarette habit a day. 3.5 packs a day I was smoking. Wow. I quit. I suddenly became, not into smoking. Like, it just it sickened me. And, you know, and I didn't even want to attribute it to TM because I want to attribute it to something else. But
well, maybe because of the career you chose, too.
Well, a lot of it...
doing that, but I can tell you, that's how I quit smoking.
Yeah, it was really weird. And Robin was a heavy smoker, too. When I met her in Washington, she was a real heavy smoker.
I couldn't stop.
And I talked to her about meditation. You would ask me about it a couple of times. You went and meditated, and then you quit. Like,
that's how I did it. I took up my meditation, and the cigarette smoking went out the window. I've never had a cigarette since.
It started to irritate me in a weird way. Like, I'd walk outside and smell fresh air, and I'd go, oh, this is irritating me, this cigarette, because I'd be smoking a cigarette outdoors, and it made no sense all of a sudden. So I can't even tell you on what level it changed me, but that's like the biggest, most pronounced effect. And then the other weird thing is, I was always an insomniac. I didn't know how to get to sleep, and it regulated my sleep. I suddenly could sleep at night. So these two things are major changes in someone's life.
See, everything you're saying, there's every indication, every logic points towards me rushing to a TM center right now, because I have insomnia, I'm a smoker, I can't kick it, and what you just said, I never thought about it that way, the grotesque thought of lighting up a cigarette in, like, Colorado. Think about that.
Oh, it's crazy.
Like, I mean, when it's awful.
Nevertheless,
I used to jog and come off the track and smoke.
Yeah, I jog when I'm smoking.
And I was heavily addicted. And I had no intention of quitting, which is weird. And not only that, I went out and played basketball, and after the day I quit, I went and broke my ankle. I tore all the ligaments. I was in a cast. That would have been the perfect time to smoke.
Playing hoops? I
landed the wrong way. So the fact of the matter was, here, even with the cast and sitting around, you know how you want a cigarette? I didn't want a cigarette. It didn't become a problem for me. And so
I've become a kind of person, I can't ever believe I smoked a cigarette.
Right,
like, how
me
could
too.
I have ever done that?
So, you know, the thing is that the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had a profound effect on my life, especially, and I thank him for this, and wherever he is right now, I thanked him in person. I got a chance to speak with him, which was rare, because mostly he's a monk and stays in seclusion for most of his life.
Yeah, you hardly saw him.
Occasionally he would talk, and I got to say to him, thank you. And he was really just a beautiful, beautiful man. I don't know how else to tell you, and I don't really proselytize a lot. I don't talk about TM a lot. But I do feel it has helped me with my creativity and all aspects of my life.
You know, Artie, you talk about some obstacles you've had. You know, we all talk about therapy, but TM created great breakthroughs in my own personal development. Remember, I didn't go home for 10 years.
Right.
It was after a TM weekend that I called you and said, I'm going home.
Yeah. So yes.
You know, I have a question for you, because you talked about how you got to interview him twice. And I'm probably one of a handful of people who's actually gotten to see that interview.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's not too highly personal, you know, if you would ever put it up on Howard TV. And I'll tell you why. There were two things about that interview that were really interesting. First, I'd never seen you so reverent. Like, it's a different Howard. And the other thing is, I've always heard you talk about TM, but I never understood what it was to you. And watching that interview, I found it fascinating how much it means to you and why you do it.
Well, the reverence was because there's not too many people that you could look at in the face and say, thank you for saving my mother's life. So, you know, this was, it gives me chills to say it. You know, there is ultimate reverence for this man. I felt he was a living saint. And I felt bad that the rest of the world maybe never got to acknowledge this guy while he was alive. And but he has written some books that I think are very, very important. And, you know, the funny thing was...
He had a vision of the world that, you know, he really wanted peace and enlightenment for everyone.
I'll never forget, it was around 1975, I heard him say the communism in Russia will disappear and the Berlin Wall will come down. Something like that. And I went, oh, this guy is so nuts, you know. and it all just unfolded. It was weird, like 2 years later. And not that he had special powers. I don't want to present him in that way. And the other thing I liked about him was, you know, I was very concerned that this TM was like maybe like a Scientology, like a religion or something. And there was no religion
Well, that's
whatsoever.
what I think of when I hear it.
No, this was not a cult kind of thing. It was a technique. He said it's the same as brushing your teeth if you buy a toothbrush, maybe you could buy TM. It's a technique I can give you that will relax you and help you. There's you don't have to switch from being a Catholic or a Jew or, you know, you don't have to be into the Hindu religion.
You can even be a Scientologist.
He is a religious guy. He was raised, he's a very spiritual man. But he never looked at people and said, you have to join the movement. You have to, now you have to go out and join a religion.
What religion is he?
He was Hindu.
Hindu, right.
Yeah. But he didn't preach that,
right.
I don't know anything about Hinduism.
Right. So it's...
Did he become a wealthy guy off it, or was
No,
he,
I think his organization